loves. Welcome to a new episode of the AW Confidential podcast. Today's guest says that taking risks is essential for growth, and the ones that she has taken have certainly paid off. Marissa Solis' story began when she arrived Rio Grande Valley from Mexico with her family at the age of 10. She didn't know all the doors that would lead to where she is sitting today. Marissa wanted to be an ambassador. She received a full ride scholarship to Georgetown University, studied foreign service, did all the things, and then fate took over, or as she calls it, serendipity, moments of serendipity. And her dream evolved. And she never studied marketing or branding, but she landed her first job as assistant brand manager for P&G laundry and paper business. She learned how to navigate bias, defy expectations, and claim her spot in corporate America, which led her to an 18-year career at Pepsico, one of the biggest brands in business. She created the Hispanic business unit and built great success. And it didn't stop there. She was instrumental in the partnership with Bad Bunny, together creating Deja tu Huella campaign. She thought she'd retire at PepsiCo. Then in 2021, more serendipitous moments, the National Football League recruited her to lead the global brand and consumer marketing group. As senior vice president, she oversees marketing relationships with major broadcast partners, manages social media campaigns, helps the NFL give back to the community, and works to make the NFL more diverse. Wow, Marissa. I had to abbreviate it. I mean, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Of course. You're Latina, a woman, and I've sort of tried to visualize you in these spaces, and I had an opportunity to see you in a space when we attended the La Latina dinner. And when you walk into a room, you have so much confidence, and you're inspiring.
Thank you.
So thank you for everything you do. Thank you for just being yourself and being so humble and just so giving, because you are giving with your time and your energy, and that empowers us to go for it. So thank you for everything you do. Now, one of the things that I wanted to sort of jump right in is that most of us are so afraid of change. And you learned the art of pivoting very early on. Now, most of us choose to stay in that safe zone. You've taken risks that have delivered incredible growth. Can you think of a moment during your journey where your decision-making maybe backfired or the outcome wasn't what you wanted it to be? Because I think we struggle with that. We sort of feel like, okay, I'll stay in my comfort zone. It's safe. I'll stay in this space. But you're a risk taker. And I know you said you wish you would have taken more risks, but I think you've taken quite a few.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, the first and foremost, change is a constant. I mean, things will always change. And so the more you're prepared for it, or maybe not prepared, but the more you're just ready for whatever life throws at you, the better that you're going to do. And it's interesting, you asked me if there was a moment where things didn't turn out the way I thought. I'd probably say every moment didn't turn out the way I thought. I mean, that's a reason it's called a risk, right? Because you kind of put yourself out there and you don't really know what the full outcome will be. And so I think when you're open, when you're open to possibilities, it just makes things better. And, I can tell you about a moment, and this wasn't even a professional moment per se, but, I have an only child, my daughter, Gabriella, who's very special to me. When I had Gabby, I didn't really know what was going to happen. And my husband and I try to plan And we had all these conversations around, okay, well, what are you going to do? How long are you going to take off? Are you going to go back to work? What's kind of your plan? And, I really didn't know. I didn't know how life was going to turn out. And I kind of let the moment happen. And so I did plan. I actually had planned to take, my 12 weeks off and kind of do my maternity leave. And interestingly enough, when I had Gabby, I just had this incredible urge to go back to work, which is crazy, right? And I actually cut my maternity leave short, and I only took 6 weeks and went back to work very quickly. Which now later in life, I'm like, gosh, that was the right decision. But then 18 months later, when she was actually talking and walking and all of the things, then I wanted to go back. So. And I had to pivot and find the time to really spend with her, but at the same time grow my professional career. So all that to answer your question, to say you really can't plan for everything. Every moment and every risk that you take is going to not turn out the way you think. But I think if you open your soul and your mind to all the possibilities, then things really, they always work out.
So what was the greatest lesson? I'm all about life lessons. What was the greatest lesson that you learned from, that sort of, and it's not lack of planning, right? It's just like going with the flow, being open to what's possible. What has been like your greatest?
I was always a planner. So I started very much.
You did the 5-year plan thing?
I was a 5-year planner, a 10-year planner. And as I kept growing and I kept seeing just the rapid amount of change, you have to plan, you have to have a vision, and you do have to plan for that vision to happen. You have to manifest it. It's just all the things along the way that you have to be ready for pivots. And I call it's almost like harvesting fortune or serendipity. Serendipity happens. It's like a happy accident. But you got to know how to harvest those happy accidents. They don't just come and then, oh my gosh, it happens. It's like, how do you take those things that happen in your life and just make the most of it and maximize all those moments? And there's so many in my life. And, at the beginning, it was kind of like life throws something at you and you don't know what to do. And then as you kind of keep going and you just, like I said, open yourself up to ambiguity and learn to navigate it and actually learn to embrace it, then all sorts of really great things happen.
So in an interview, because we're talking about when you were younger, you gave some advice to your 23-year-old self. You said, it's going to be okay and be ready for change. You offer so much great advice and just wisdom. What is the one piece of advice you were given that now you think back and you say, wow, that was terrible advice?
Yeah.
And we all have that.
We do. I think being in corporate America, you grow up in corporate and you have a lot of mentors and coaches and, they try to kind of train you. And I was always told that I was too nice, that I needed to be
hard,
almost ruthless, right? Because business success comes with being, determined and ruthless. And it was just something I could never do. Like, I really struggled with that advice because it's that's not who I am. And it's not who my parents taught me to be. At the core of everything, there's always been humility and, treating others with respect. And this notion of servant leadership has always been at the core of everything. So that was really hard advice. And then I saw this movie, which will date me, but if you just stay with me, if you remember Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze.
Yes, I remember.
So there's a saying in this movie that I absolutely love. And Patrick says, be nice. Always be nice until it's time to not be nice, right? And it's like you can be yourself. You can be humble. You can be welcoming. You can be respectful, and you should be respectful. And hey, there will be moments in your life when the circumstance calls for you to, not be so nice and take your seat, claim your seat, be assertive, tell others that you disagree. So yes, there's those moments, but inherently, you don't have to be ruthless to be successful.
I love that because I was in corporate America, and absolutely, it's like, okay, you need to be, I feel it like hard, like you can't show heart. And I love that you shared that. Because we can still be kind and we can be assertive.
Absolutely.
So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Now, what advice do you wish you would have been given that maybe would have made your journey easier?
I really did wish somebody told me that it was going to be okay. Like, in my younger years, I was very ambitious. I wanted to succeed, and there's a certain level of anxiety. And I know that, when I talk to young women today, there's a certain level of anxiety that comes with, there's a lot expected of us. It's not just the pressures of succeeding, whether it's in corporate America or your own business. It's like we carry our roots, we carry our families, our ancestors, so there's just a lot of pressure to be somebody, to be successful. And I wish when I was, younger that somebody said to me, it will be okay.
It's
make the right decisions, enjoy the road. I didn't start to really enjoy it until much, much later in my career.
I'll be honest with you. I hadn't thought, I always prepare for interviews, and I've seen so many interviews and read so many articles when I was preparing for this. And I know it sounds simple, but I don't remember a time when someone said, it's going to be okay. And I used that for my daughter because she just graduated. She's like, Mom, I can't, things are not happening fast enough. And I felt the anxiety. And I said to her, I said, you know what? You're going to be okay.
Yes, and I tell my daughter that all the time too.
But I had never I know it sounds crazy. I hadn't thought about it. It sounds so simple, but at the end of it, when I think about even my life, I've been through some things, but I'm okay.
Absolutely.
So no, I love that, and I will be using it. So thank you for letting us know that we're gonna be okay.
I love it.
Now, you were inducted into the Big Brothers Big Sisters Alumni Hall.
Yes.
And that's one of my favorite interviews. In an interview for the program, you shared a beautiful story about a teacher that made a difference in your life, Mr. Cardenas. Mm-hmm. And I feel that I've had amazing teachers, and I feel that part of the reason why I am who I am today is not only my mom, may she rest in peace, my dad, my family, it's the teachers that made an impact in my life. And, we look for mentors not mentors, but we look for our role models, or the younger generation does, in bright and shiny things, people, influencers and artists. And, we have to go back to the basics. And you mentioned that he taught you to adapt. He taught you about possibility, and he instilled the spark that started it all. And we never forget that impact. We don't, because I know what it feels like. How do you pay it forward? And what do you think he would say about your success today?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, how do I pay it forward? You always think back to what people did for you. So you want to make sure you do that for others. It's very, very easy to forget where you were or how you were feeling when you start to taste success, right? And I remember my dad always saying, stay grounded, remember who you are, where you came from, because you start to taste success, you start getting in certain circles, it's very tempting to forget what it felt like. And I always remember that feeling. I mean, as a 10-year-old, I didn't know English. I was in a different country. There was bullying involved, and there was just a lot of things. I had just lost my father. We had just there were a lot of things happening in my life at the time, and just putting myself back in that time frame and what I felt like, and then how he made me feel, right? To say, hey, I'm here for you. Let me kind of teach you the ways of, just even being in school, teach you how to speak English. Oh, by the way, there's a thing called college.
And opening your mind.
Let me take you to the East Coast and take you away from, this little place where you grew up and show you just all the things. I just will always remember that feeling. So when I'm counseling someone or mentoring someone, I want to put myself in their shoes. That feeling of maybe you're lost, you don't know, or you don't know that it's going to be okay. That's why I always say, no, it will be, and everything will work out. And, just to the end of your question around what he would say, I mean, my goodness, never in a million years would I have thought that I would be, at the helm of the National Football League. Like, even up to 4 years ago when I joined the National Football League, I never thought that would be, a possibility. So I think he would say, like, wow, it's just, you open kind of your mind and yourself to those possibilities, and that truly anything, right, is possible. We say it's cliche. We hear it all the time. If you work hard, you can do anything.
You hear it all the time.
You do hear it all the time, but it truly is. You just have to open yourself and remember, I think when people hear you can do anything, they have something in their head. They're like, okay, I'm going to go and do that. Sometimes maybe that doesn't work out, but then
that's right.
Through a roundabout way, because I was going to be an ambassador.
You wanted to be an ambassador.
Okay? I should be an ambassador right now.
Right, to prepare.
I did all the things. I went to the right school. I studied. I passed the Foreign Service exam. I mean, that was my career goal. And in the end, it didn't happen. It didn't work out. But then all these crazy, awesome, incredible things happened. And now, I feel like I am a bit of an ambassador to, my community and my culture.
The dreams took a different shape.
And so it just takes a different shape. And I think if you're open to that, I mean, honestly, I still pinch myself, when I walk into the league meetings and, we sit in the big boardroom and I'm facing Roger Goodell. It's pinch me moments, surreal moments. But hey, it's I'm here. Might as well make the best of it, right?
I love it. You talked about humility, and I love this. Humility, gratitude, vulnerability, authenticity. It's so underrated in our community, and I think in society as a whole. Now, you've expressed the importance of these for success. How have these helped you during your journey?
Yeah, I mean, these things are so important. I'll tell you a little bit about humility. It's just something that's ingrained. I mean, I grew up in the restaurant business with my parents.
Did you work in one of the?
I worked in all the restaurants. I did everything. I mean, I mopped floors. I washed dishes. Wow. I hosted. I waitress, everything. And I think, my father always said, every job is important. You could be mopping the floors. You could be hosting, the most important person. Every job is important. And I think having that humility is very key. And the thing about humility in corporate America is very unexpected. And so when you walk in and you present yourself in a very humble way, I think it disarms people. In some cases, they underestimate you, which is actually an advantage. And in some cases, it just disarms the conversation. So it allows people to just open up more, and it allows those conversations to go to places where maybe, especially in corporate America, you're guarded or, you don't want to
pool of sharks.
Say too much.
So you're kind of waiting.
You start to build trust. And trust is very important, right? So humility is important. Gratitude is key. I mean, you're grateful for everything you have, right? So you come from a place of abundance. The glass is always full. And so you're never going to have scarcity in your life when you come from that place. So gratitude is key. I start every morning, with just 5 minutes of gratitude for everything. Even if you have the worst day the day before, you still thank God for that day.
You're breathing.
Yeah. So I think that's just always, gratitude breeds positivity, you know.
And I have noticed that about you. We've had brief conversations, and sometimes it's hard because it's sort of that negative part of your mind. It's almost like it has a bigger control than the positive. And we've had conversations where I'll say something and it's not that it's negative, but the perspective might be a little negative, and you'll spin it. You'll spin it in a way where you're like, well, no, don't look at it that way. Look at it from, a positive perspective. And literally that shift just changes the whole conversation, and it changes my mindset or whoever you're speaking to. And you seem to have that gift. And I think I'm not sure if it's practice, if it's just that's the way you've sort of cultivated, you've cultivated this positive mindset, but you're really good at it.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. I think it just, comes from your upbringing and, hardships that you go through, and, you always look on the bright side, right?
We're working on it. Now, along with these things that I mentioned, the other quality that I've seen in you is confidence. And it's something that is very important in corporate, as it would be in a room of, in the NFL league. I can only imagine. I'm guessing you're one of a handful of women.
We actually have quite a bit of women. It is still definitely a man's world, if you will, but there's quite a bit of women, we're in the league and leadership, on my own team. So it is really great to kind of have a mixture of people. Yes.
So we have to believe in ourselves and believe in what we bring to the table. That is key. Sports is a great way to build confidence and build discipline. I learned that you are a black belt in Taekwondo.
Yeah, I have a third-degree black belt, yes.
Third-degree black belt, okay. So I'm curious, when did that start for you, and has that been a contributing factor to your confidence?
Well, it started very late. So
wait, what?
It started very, very late. I don't know if it was the contributor to my confidence, because that was a different story that happened very early. But I actually did it very late in my life. I was approaching a milestone birthday, which you can imagine which one it was. But I was approaching a milestone birthday, and I was never really like a big athletic person, and so it was, as things happen and you start to think about your health and I got to get in shape and things like that. My daughter wanted to do it and kind of join Taekwondo. We went to the dojo, and, the gentleman said, hey, we have an adult class. You're welcome to join. And I ended up joining, and, I think my daughter thought I would last like 2 weeks. And she ended up quitting, a few months into it. And I just really loved it. And there's just so many things about martial arts that it just connected with me. It's
discipline too, isn't it?
It's a lot of discipline and mindset. It really is about personal growth. It is a journey for yourself. Like, you're not really going against other people. It really is about growing and growth.
Well, you have me thinking about trying.
No, absolutely. I mean, I didn't know. People think black belt is like the ultimate thing. And it's funny because getting your black belt is actually the beginning of the journey. All the colors you go through are just preparing you for the journey, and the black belt is the beginning. And it really just is a journey of constant improvement. My teacher sensei used to say, if you become 1% better every day, just 1% better, in 100 days, you're going to be 100% better. And so it was always about just a constant growth, constant improvement, which really jived with, kind of all my philosophies of life to begin with. Plus, it really makes you a badass. Like, when you start to break boards and,
Get out. Are you still practicing?
I do like the forms and some of the board breaking. I don't do the intense, like I used to spar with other women. And I mean, it's crazy, right?
That is intimidating to me.
But lots of really great life lessons and definitely a confidence booster. But yeah, it's great. I mean, I recommend it for everybody. For everybody.
All right, we're going to have to try a class.
For sure.
So I have to bring this up. We have to talk Super Bowl for a minute.
Yes, yeah.
Hey, loves, pickleball's taking over, and women are leading the charge. Ready to play like a pro and look like royalty? Meet the Pretty Pickleball Company, created by women for women, serving up dreamy paddles with serious game. Whether you're just starting or smashing it on the court, bring magic and the style. Visit theprettypickleballcompany.com and find your perfect paddle today. Talk to you soon. Because Super Bowl 2025 garnered, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I looked it up, 127.7 million viewers.
Yeah, it's actually more than that. That was probably the linear viewership, but I think all in, it was almost 200 million viewers. Awesome. Yeah.
So I love football. I felt this Super Bowl had a different feel to it. It was more of the only word I can think of is human. It just felt different to me.
It was very special. It was a very special Super Bowl.
And my favorite ad was Big Brothers, Big Sisters, the message. I'm going to say it without getting emotional, but I am somebody. It resonated with me. And I'm sure it resonated with many children and adults. It just makes you feel like, wow, I'm enough. It's that little reminder in your head. Has there been a time in your life when you struggled with self-worth or validation? And how did you rise above it to become the woman you are today?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's always the little voice, right? The little doubt, can I really do this? Do I belong here? I think over time you learn to train the other voice, which is the cheerleader voice, that you're a badass, you're this. I had different moments in my life that just kind of trained me to build that confidence and tell me that I could do things. I don't know if you know the story of, when I was very young in my career at P&G, my very first job, I got my first advertising campaign.
I think I know the story.
Yeah, and it's just a crazy story, right? Like you walk into the agency and you're ready to go, and it's a room full of men, and basically the head of the agency says, hey, why don't you meet Susie, my admin? Why don't you two ladies go have cafecito while we men talk business?
I did read, yes.
And, I was 21, 22 years old when this happened to me. And it was a very quick yet slow, if you can imagine all the thoughts going through my head at that moment. Like I'm standing in front of this person that just told me I didn't belong. And so the negative voice could have taken over, like, yeah, he's right. What am I doing here? I'm 21 years old. I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't study marketing. Like, I'm just going to leave. But then the positive voice saying, your parents fought so hard for you to be here. Like, you are smart. You are strong. Like, you're here for a reason. Like, claim your place, girl. Like, do not leave. Like, all that happened in 2 seconds. And yeah, I had to speak up. No one else spoke up. My boss didn't speak up. No one else that was in the room. And so I kind of had to speak up for myself. And I mean, my heart was coming out of my chest. I was like, oh my God. But that moment was so critical because I stood up for myself. And it was very awkward from then on, but then slowly I built it. And so every hard moment after that, there were a lot. There's still hard moments. I just go back to that moment like, okay, I stood up for myself. I can do this, and it will happen and continue to happen. There's every stages get bigger. There's always someone that's going to come and make you feel like you're not good enough. You don't belong, and you just got to remind yourself. Yeah. And you got to remind yourself that you absolutely do. Right. So
I remember when I first entered corporate, I had a gentleman come up to me. Literally, it was within that first week. He handed $20 to me. He said, I need you to pick up some coffee for me and my laundry. And I looked at him. I said, no, that's not what I'm here for. And it's amazing the things that you endure. And I think as a woman, I think even more so. And I just remembered it when I was listening to your story. But I think it's something that you can go back to and say, well, you stood up for yourself in that moment. You can keep doing it over and over again because it doesn't stop. There'll be all types of moments.
And hey, there will be moments where you don't stand up, or you fall through the pressure or whatever. And that's okay too, because you go back, you rebuild yourself, you bring it back together, and you learn from it. So it's not always like, oh, great all the time.
I don't know. There are the moments ego for me. I was like,
there are the moments that, you have to just regroup and keep going.
So what is your most proudest moment from this Super Bowl?
This past Super Bowl?
Yeah. It was special to me. It was
a very special Super Bowl. There were so many proud moments. I think, being in New Orleans, it's such a unique and special community. I think, we worked very hard and diligently with the native New Orleans people and the Black masking Indians of New Orleans to create the look and feel. So everything you saw at Super Bowl was a bespoke creation by them. There was a woman named Queen Taj, who represented the community, and she literally sewed that Super Bowl logo. She made it from beads, and I think that was the first time ever, that a Black woman designed the logo, that someone from the community, and it was so special and unique. So I was very proud of that. Very proud, obviously, of the Big Brothers Big Sisters partnership and that message. We partnered with young women and showcased them as flag football stars, and they were the star of the Super Bowl. So I think just stretching that moment to be about, inclusion, and for people to see people that aren't usually seen and aren't usually in these stages, you put them up on these stages, it's just very, very special. And I think people felt that,
Absolutely. Yeah. So thank you for that. Now, I cannot let you go without asking you about representation. It's hard to be what we cannot see. You are inspiring a new generation of women to dream bigger. Representation is essential for our community, but you have said that it's not enough. Allyship is also key to creating change. So how do we build relationships, create new alliances when we don't have the access to the proper channels or the resources that will help propel us forward?
Yeah, I think, again, I'm not sure that we don't have the resources, because in my mind, allyship is simply about reaching out to someone that's not like you. That is the simplest thing. And so, I think we forget. I hear a lot from my mentees, there's no one that looks like me, and so how can I succeed? Or there's no one like me. And my answer back is, that's exactly how you will succeed, because you don't have to see it to be it. I hope people realize, yes, we want to represent, but when you surround yourself with people that are different than you, then you start to learn all sorts of different points of view, different ways to approach things. You become a lot more innovative and creative. And again, it goes back to the humility. Like, when you disarm people around you that are different than you and you start to build the trust, the kinds of relationships and things. And so it doesn't have to start from a place of access. Like, just reach out to someone different than you. And
the worst they could say is no.
Yeah, right? And ask questions and have the conversation. And if you are lucky enough to be the only one in the room, because that is a very privileged position in a very, you can learn a lot by being the only, then definitely open doors for others to come with you, right?
Absolutely.
But don't be afraid of not having people that look like you. An ally is literally reach out to someone. I make it a point to every day talk to someone very different than myself in every aspect, whether it's culturally, a different gender, a different identity, or just someone that totally disagrees with my point of view. It's refreshing to say, okay, let's just have a conversation. Why do we disagree? And how do you see things? And hopefully if there's a place of trust, you can get to a place where you find some common ground. Hey, sometimes it's like, all right, we just agree to disagree because we're like just way too different. But hopefully you come out of that conversation learning something and opening, more doors. So it's a very different way to look at our plight and representation. And I think it's the true meaning of inclusion. Like, you have to invite others in. And by others, it's like all others, even the people that you most think that are the farthest away from you. Like, you got to invite them in. And sometimes it'll surprise you,
I love that. So one of the things that I love to do towards the end of interviews is share a quote, mantra, or piece of advice. In an interview, you shared the story of how Demario Davis, linebacker for New Orleans, he memorized affirmations for the kids of Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to share some words of affirmation that have inspired you, or that you've used in some challenging moments in your life, because I think we all have them and we can all use some words of affirmation today.
Yeah. There is a poem that actually, when I was a senior in high school, through some project or something I found, and it truly has been like my mantra. So it's my words of inspiration. The poem is called Invictus. So look it up, Invictus. It's a beautiful poem, and it's a bit of an affirmation. It talks about, out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods there be for my unconquerable soul. Wow. So it talks about, when you're in the darkest moments, like, you are the captain of your fate and you are the master of your soul. And that's how it ends. And I love this poem. I mean, it's not a long poem. It's like two short things. But when I read it, I was like, this is me. I want to be unconquerable, and I am the master. And I don't know. I've just always kept it. And so that's kind of been my mantra. And in those moments that, you're like, oh my God, am I going to fall apart here because I don't know what to do? You kind of just remember, I am unconquerable and I am the master. And at the end of the day, I have a choice here.
I love that.
And it could go right or wrong, but I do have that choice. And
I love
you move
that.
forward,
Marissa, thank you so much for sharing your journey, for sharing your wisdom, for being here with us today. Please share with our community how they find out more about you, the NFL, contributing to the community and seeing how we can help.
Yeah, I mean, you can reach me personally. I have a LinkedIn account. You can look me up on Instagram, and then, all things NFL. I mean, my goodness.
Everyone knows that.
You can, we've got our website, and hopefully, and you're
Big
following.
Brothers Big Sisters, right?
Yes, Big Brothers Big Sisters is an organization I belong to. I'm part of different community organizations, but dig in, come find out, and would love to have more discussions for sure.
Well, keep doing what you're doing. You're inspiring me and so many others.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
And thank you, loves, for joining us on this episode of AW Confidential. Remember, be unconquerable. I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you so much. Wow.
That was great.
Oh, I don't know. I had a couple moments. I was like, don't cry. Don't cry.